This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland front of the lane, locked to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, it wasn't always pretty, but the Cleveland Cavaliers found a way to pull away against the Utah Jazz and end their losing streak. I'm feeling better. Finally get to see a win. It's always a little concerning. It seems like these afternoon games have given them trouble, but the Cavs got the W, and I'm feeling W's right now because I'm joined by my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm glad we weren't soon out against. That's all you can really ask for a late season trip to Utah, especially for an afternoon matinee game where the Cavs have not been playing their best ball in those settings, and with them playing their worst basketball of the season. And, first off, way better to win than lose. I don't know if I feel like everything is solved as of yet. I still think there's stuff to get cleaned up. There's still some form questions, concerns I have a little bit, but at the end of the day, I don't think they played their best game and they won by 29 points.
Yeah, I did not feel like this was a vintage Cleveland Cavaliers basketball win, right? I don't think that this was necessarily a return to form from the best versions of this team that we've seen. But what I will say is I did feel like from the start, the defensive effort was there, even when the shots weren't falling. And that hasn't consistently been the case. I think we've seen at times that, the defensive effort falls off as the shots aren't falling. They're a little late on the rotations. The scrambles are a half step slow. I felt even in the first half where Utah was able to hang around, the defensive effort was consistently there. Guys were diving for loose balls. They were rotating. They were communicating. And if they're going to continue to go through a bit of this stretch, which we can get into later on whether or not we think this is going to continue, but reality is they have been on the road for a very long time. They haven't played in the same city twice since February 25th. So they've been traveling between every single game. And I understand some of those games are at home, but when you're only there for an evening, it's an extension of the road trip at that point. You're never fully getting any rest. And I think that
nothing's coming out of the bags.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I think Danny Cunningham on Locked On Cavs has said basically over that stretch, they've had 4 nights at home. That's nothing. Right. So I do think that is having an effect on these guys. I think it was big that they were able to win comfortably enough that a lot of the starters got to sit for, the end of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter. But I think fatigue is definitely a factor. But if you're going to be playing with some tired legs, if your shots aren't going to be falling at the clip that we're accustomed to, getting it done and at least committing on the defensive end, I think is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought in general the energy was a lot better. I think there was. It's tough because this Utah team is in such rough shape. They're a lot worse than they even were last year in terms of the guys they have on the floor. No John Collins, no Lauri Markkanen. And so, they're playing some guys that I just think, Cody Williams ain't Jalen Williams. He ain't his brother. I was trying to kind of identify the spots where it was like, are they giving up open shots and Utah isn't able to convert, or are they locked in? And overall, I think they were pretty locked in. I think that there were a few possessions where they didn't have to guard as hard, because, Utah had a lot of guys out there that maybe weren't the best shooters, at different parts of their roster. But the game is the game. And I think they played their opponent well. They played to the scouting report well. They left the right kinds of guys open. They crashed down in the right spots. They forced 18 turnovers. They had 7 combined blocks as a team. They had 9 steals. That tells me at least the energy was going a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. And, I had the eye roll when Walker Kessler hit a three-pointer in the first half, because I was like, come on, a 17% three-point shooter is going to go out there and start hitting shots on us. He ended up going 1 for 8, which is just under 13%. So, he shot his career averages.
8 three-point attempts is no comment.
What that is getting to explore the space. That is, hey, we're not playing for wins here. Let's try to expand your game. Jaren Jackson Jr. got to do a lot of that last year.
That's Andre Drummond taking threes for us a couple years ago.
Hey, that was some fun basketball, Carter. Don't you dare talk down on Andre Drummond exploring the space. But yeah, there were definitely, as you said, whether it's Walker Kessler throwing up threes or some of the other options that they had, you're not going to need to close out on them the same way that you have to against a Kevin Durant or a Royce O'Neal. But I thought the overall defensive effort has been a lot better. Mobley struggled in his first game back from injury defensively against the Clippers. I thought, even though the Suns game didn't go our way, I thought his defensive effort and impact was back.
He blocked the Kevin Durant pull-up jumper. It was crazy.
Which is just about the hardest thing you can do in basketball. Because that is one of the most difficult shots to defend, period, in the league. So,
and then Durant, by the way, answered with like 9 pull-up hits in response. It was almost like okay. And he definitely wanted to get his back. And Kevin Durant is still very good at basketball.
Yes, he is. And I just think that it's at least a foundation, right? Because for the most part, the offensive struggles have kind of continued. We haven't been hitting threes at the rate we're accustomed to.
Another 10 missed free throws tonight. Crazy.
Like, honestly, that really goes to show that you're out of a rhythm, right? When you're even missing all the free throws, it's even when they get to the rim at times, they haven't been finishing the way that we're used to seeing. And I don't know if there's any one thing that's solely to blame for the rut that they're in offensively, but I do think at least getting the win, getting some of that confidence back, pulling away in the way that they did, can at least help gain some positive momentum, which, basketball, whether it is within a game or if you're talking about an 82 game season, it's a game and it's a season of runs. It is such a momentum sport. And sometimes you just need to see a couple of them go down for you to gain your confidence as a shooter. Sometimes you just need to get that one win to start rattling off wins again. So I hope that this can at least be a catalyst for that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's also important for this team to kind of remind themselves that they don't need to shoot well to win. I think they started leaning on that a little bit as a crutch of like, okay, if the 3-pointer's going, we feel great. If the threes aren't going, maybe we don't feel so great. They shoot 23% in this game. They go 11 of 48, which, man, that's a lot of 3-point attempts. I know a lot of them were open, but we're bored. We're pressing my comfortability there with that much. It was literally half their field goal attempts. But they go 11 of 48 from 3. They go 33 of 48 from 2. And they get to the rim consistently. They're forcing turnovers. They're getting out and running, and they're winning and scoring in multiple ways. It's really hard to score 120 points when you shoot 23% from 3 and 68% from the free throw line. And I think it goes to show that there are a lot of roads up the proverbial mountain here. And just because you're not in great form as a shooter doesn't mean that you just have to shrug and be like, well, that's the only way. We just got to hope we make them, because the Cavs never made them in this game, and it didn't matter en route to scoring 120 points.
Yeah, and that is my preferred way to go about this, right? Let's attack the rim. Let's try to, if we're going to generate open threes, have it be because we're attacking the rim, the defense is collapsing, and we are generating quality looks. I don't want to settle for threes. And I do feel like the offensive process hasn't been as crisp as it has been throughout the season. I do feel like they are settling for threes. Not to pick on anyone in particular, but Sam Merrill, when he in the first half took a pull up kind of 1-on-4 3 in transition, it's a decent look. On nights where you have it rolling, I'm fine with that. But you have to value the shots, it's particularly when you're overall in an offensive rut. I think you need to work to get better looks. And I was encouraged actually at the start of this game against Utah, where Donovan was really getting to the rim. He was getting to the rim at will. I thought that they were generating very, very quality looks. I thought Walker Kessler was having trouble defending in space. And I was like, okay, perfect. Let's attack. Let's keep getting this, let's force Utah to make us do something different. And I felt like we got ourselves out of that offensive rhythm. I thought after that start, all of a sudden we started going for that knockout punch. We started to take more threes without really working the ball and generating high quality looks. And I just felt like the offensive process overall wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, an 88.5 offensive rating in the second quarter, where Utah kind of made their run back, and Cavs went 0 of 9 from 3. I didn't think they took the best threes, but I think the probably the most problematic thing is only 3 assists in that second quarter. So the ball kind of wasn't moving the way it was to start the game. The downward momentum that kind of made it hard for Utah to stick with them kind of went away. They got more to side to side basketball. And of course they just missed a lot, which is tough. But I do think you're right that this is still a team that's kind of and I think that's where both of us are kind of on the this is nice, but I do want to see we want to see some of the underlying performance metrics tick back up a little bit before we feel like they're out of the woods with this rough stretch of play.
Yeah, and I think part of how the Cavs are built lends itself towards being able to make these pivots, right? There are stretches where offensively our identity is going to be centered around the guards, right? They are going to generate good looks for themselves. They're going to generate good looks for everybody else. We can really lean on them offensively. When you're in ruts like this, and when you're in kind of this, long road trip, bit of a rock fight, I'd like to see us lean more and more on the bigs. And I just felt like we haven't been consistently doing that over this stretch. And Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are able to generate really, really good looks for themselves. They are such intelligent players in space, in traffic. They're able to generate rim pressure in ways that, frankly, no one else on this roster is really able to do at that same level. Even if it involves, when you're in those one big configurations, getting DeAndre Hunter as the roll man and trusting him to finish or draw contact at the rim. I would just like to see us attack the rim more and not settle into, well, this is our shot profile when everything's rolling, so let's almost speak it into existence. Let's take these same shots and trust that they're going to fall. I really feel like once you kind of get that rim pressure, once you challenge teams and they are changing what they're doing defensively to take that away, then you can start opening things up and taking those threes. And if it's not falling at that point, at least you can say, hey, they were really cheating to take away the rim. These were the looks that we were able to generate. We trust that these are going to fall at some point, but I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like we are the ones dictating our shot selection more than what the defense is doing at this point.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking about how when you're slumping this hard as a team shooting, it does break your brain a little bit, because when you do want to run your offense the way you normally run it and the defense collapses, you're supposed to kick it out, right? Yeah. And when you kick it out to an open shooter, they're supposed to shoot it. So, and I feel like as they've been, so icy, teams have, I think the Cavs have gotten a lot of open looks over these last 5 games.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, I feel like when, and I certainly feel like the Cavs have done this, when the other team clearly doesn't have it, you're like, oh man, we really get to worry about the rim tonight, and we get to collapse a little harder, because until they start killing us, why would we, the only place they're getting us is at the rim. So let's just protect the rim. And like anecdotally, that's what I feel like I've seen is like, man, well, they're making, there are possessions where I'm like, yeah, they're getting into the teeth, the defense collapses, and then they have to kick it out. And so I'm sympathetic, I guess. Mm-hmm. But like, that's where I think your point about running things through the bigs and attacking differently that's your skeleton key. That's your solution, because you're at least like, one, it's harder for them to dig down and help when it's Evan initiating or Jarrett catching it on the move, and finishing, as opposed to, when those guys are catching the ball near the rim and getting the ball into scoring position, it's just an easier finish for them than Darius or Donovan, because they're massive and those guys are small, right? So like, if there is extra help in that paint, the bigs are going to finish better than the smalls against that extra help, just, writ large. So like, I think that's why I've been disappointed to see them not go to the bigs as much, because it's like, change the rhythm of what you're doing when the base system isn't working, because one, you'll get stronger at those like where you let Evan just run the offense for a quarter, like your group can kind of congeal around that, and then it does change the rhythm for the guards. If Donovan's pull-up game is really not there, like giving him a bunch of catch and shoot attempts in a row probably goes a long way. Like changing the rhythm of where these guys are catching it when the current rhythm is not leading to makes. And this is all very soft, squishy stuff, which is really hard to analyze, especially as like non-players and non-coaches. Because we're not guys going through shooting slumps, We're not coaching guys out of shooting slumps. So this is all very squishy and very theoretical. And, it's very possible any member of the coaching staff or player might listen to this, which they won't, but if they did, they might listen to this and shake their head and be like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. But that's the challenge of dealing with performance dips like this, especially as shooters, because it's like, how do you break it out of it, or do you just have to kind of white knuckle through it? I don't know the answer.
I think you're right. When the base system isn't working, that's something that can just kind of break your brain in a lot of ways. But sometimes it's nice to know, even when the base system isn't working, there's a backup system that's there supporting you, Carter, just like Zoom AI Companion. Because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. It's funny, looking at the wide open looks that the Cavs have got, the Utah data isn't in the mix yet, but at least for this 4-game, the losing streak that preceded it, they were getting a decent number of wide open looks. For the season, they take over 20 wide open threes per game where a defender is not within 6 feet. Over the losing streak, it was 17.5. They're shooting 41% on those looks for the losing streak. So, it's only 1% worse than they shoot on the season for those looks, but and it is 3 fewer, but they were getting a decent number of looks. I just feel like some of those semi-contested, the late contest, and just how they're getting to the shots hasn't felt as good as it has at other times of the year. And obviously, when your guards have been going through a funk, that's going to make things tough. I feel like Darius has mostly broken out of it. Tonight wasn't a great night for him, but he started to get hot. And then him and Donovan getting hot in the third quarter basically put the game away, so they didn't get a chance to continue.
How about Ty finally hitting a few? That was big for Ty.
That was tremendous. Honestly, Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter both coming out there and having big games off the bench, I thought was significant. I think that is the kind of thing that you really need to have going if you're going to continue to have some success on this road trip and actually, close it out on the right foot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think really you look at those the three guards, because this team really has three guards that play now in Ty, Darius, and Donovan. Ty has gotten his numbers up a little bit. He's up to 46 from the field and 31 from three. Darius is at 39 from the field and 32% from three. And Donovan is at 33% from the field and 16.7% from three. He hasn't hit a three in his last two games. This is all for the month of March for these guys. And there is a little bit of an inherent, there's nothing to analyze here. When those three guys are slashing that poorly collectively, they are the play initiators for this offense for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's not and we can make the Evan argument, and I still think we should, that we want to see Evan initiate more and run things through the bigs. But it's not like his usage is cratered this month and they've stopped running the ball through him. We just are wanting it more because the alternatives don't feel as good as they normally do.
Right.
So
right.
it's just a funky time of year, which is not particularly mathematical. But yeah, Evan's usage for the year is at 22.6. Looking it up live. Bear with me. Oh God, it's not loading, Justin. It's over. It's over. I'll let you know.
Okay. Hashtag
up 22.8. It's higher. It's higher
okay.
in March than it has been for the year.
Yeah. It's funny because when I look at this team, there's nothing that jumps out that red flag sirens going off like last year when it was very clear that Mitchell was moving around on one leg and Darius was the shell of himself physically and was kind of fading away, right? There are times where there's just kind of boneheaded mistakes. Some of the turnovers Darius has had over the stretch are just too ambitious, right? You're dealing with guys that are mentally and physically tired, and you are throwing a rocket pass through traffic, bouncing and making it a very, very difficult catch for someone like Jared Allen who's rolling to the basket. You can kind of tone that down and let's go for a more higher percentage play. I liked him going off the glass, but nobody else was on that same. Nobody is on that wavelength, right? Those unforced errors, I think that you can do a better job of kind of mitigating. But for the most part, when I see Donovan moving around, some of the misses are really bad, but he looks fine to me physically.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Kenny talked about that after the Suns game where he was, hey, is that groin something that's bothering him? And he says, as far as I understand, it's not. Our medical staff has given him the green light. This is just him working through some stuff. And I believe him. They have taken such a cautious approach that if a guy is out there, I trust that they are not doing further damage to themselves. And I thought Donovan getting to the rim the way he did to start this game was a great sign in terms of how he looked physically.
Yeah, I think so too. And by the way, speaking of audacious passes, was that baseball pass to Strus in the corner the best pass Donovan Mitchell has ever thrown in his career? Oh my God.
It's the best one that I can remember, at least in his recent play. That was phenomenal. That had sauce on it.
And it went through 6 people. It was crazy. That was the vision, the pace. I mean, if that is at 90% of the speed that he threw it, it's getting picked off. And we're what are you doing, Donovan? It was such an audacious decision. And then to match it with an an audaciously like strong and the pace on that thing was bananas. What a pass. That was amazing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't have anything productive to say about it. It was just cool.
What I liked about this game for Donovan was, at least recently, as he's been going through this slump, it's felt like the shot's not falling and he's not helping in other ways, right? Like he's actively, playing against the Cavs at some point. And I wasn't surprised to see him take accountability after the Suns game. That's 100% what you expect from Donovan Mitchell from a leadership standpoint. But I felt like his bad games have felt really bad. Whereas with this game, he didn't shoot well. The three-pointer, as you said, he hasn't made one in the last 2 games. But I thought he was hitting the glass. I thought he was active, getting steals. I thought the passing was good. I felt like he was playing a good overall game. He just wasn't shooting well. And that's more reminiscent of what we saw when Darius was going through his slump, where, okay, the playmaking's there, at least in that stretch when the shot wasn't falling. Ironically, his assist-to-turnover ratio had been great, and he was playing good defense. That's what I want to see from Donovan, because, Portland's not a good team, but they're a team that has length. We've seen them, come down to the wire against the Cavs. Kamara is someone that can be really, really disruptive defensively. So I'm going to be interested to see. There's a very good chance that we have another off shooting night there. Can Donovan and can Darius find ways to make an impact, even if the shot isn't falling in that matchup?
One thing I do want to say, to kind of contextualize, because you made the comment like Darius was, even when he was slumping, it felt like everything else was still, the Cavs were able to survive it because of all the other things he was doing. I would also argue they were able to survive it also because the rest of the team was in really good form.
Yes, that's a good point.
And the rest of the team is not in really good form right now. So it's like, we're going to feel a Donovan slump a lot harder when Darius is also at not his best either. And Ty is not at his best. I mean, think about how many of those Darius games Ty just scored 24 points,
right?
Or Max went off, or DeAndre Hunter got to 30 points. Like, the whole team just isn't in the best form right now. So I think that is an important piece of context to layer into the Donovan slump right now. Is like he doesn't have the same level of insulation that the team has provided the other players on the team when they've not played their best this year.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. It's funny because I was looking at this game against Utah and I'm like, wow, Cavs had a 60-30 edge on points in the paint. They managed turnovers really well. And, but as I'm building out the rundown for this episode, I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is the kind of stuff they need to do to raise their floor, right? To mitigate bad shooting nights and give themselves a better chance. This is the stuff they weren't doing against Phoenix. And then I go back and I look at the game stats for Phoenix. I'm like, oh, Cavs actually won the offensive rebound battle. They won the turnover battle. They had more points off of turnovers. Cavs outscored them, points in the paint. They had 5 more steals. And yet the game still felt so bad. And some of that is due to how rough the second half or the first half was. I agree with Kenny Atkinson that I thought their defensive effort in the second half was a whole lot better. But I'm looking at kind of the game stats and those type of, effort splits and things like that. And I was expecting them to be one way, but it was a totally different way. It really, really caught me off guard.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, where are those offensive rebounds coming from? Oso Iguodaro and Ryan Dunn, a couple rookies that are kind of outworking you. Cody Martin.
Gillespie on a 2-way contract lighting you up.
Yeah, so I do think you can't forget where the Suns are as a team right now. And I do think that was a frustrating loss. I do think that their focus was poor and they were really counting. It's like the kind of the worst thing where in that first half where you give up the open 3 and you don't close out hard and then you shrug when it goes in and it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you, brother.
Yeah.
He didn't do any of the things that would make it not go in. So it's like, even if it's a guy who normally wouldn't make it, someone like Ryan Dunn, who's not a great shooter, it's like, I don't know, man. Again, you didn't do anything that would make it hard for him. So it gets really hard to, feel too bad for you that you're dealing with a high, a good shooting night from your opponent. Like the shooting variance does not come out of the same, is not always cut from the same cloth. And I felt like Phoenix really got whatever they wanted. And then by the time the Cavs took the game really seriously on the defensive end, it was just too big of a gap to cover. And you were counting on Kevin Durant to miss contested shots. And he might be the best contested shot maker in the history of the sport.
Yeah, and not only that, all of them were in a rhythm because
Yeah.
you gave them such quality shots, and they got to see it go in so many times, right?
Can I pick a nit strategically
Yeah,
in that from that game because it bothered me at the time and I was put it in my back pocket? I know that the zone has been something we break out when things aren't working very well. We can't break out the zone against Kevin Durant. It doesn't work. He killed him. It's like the best light contest shot maker in the history of the sport, probably. Like the difference between not guarding Kevin Durant at all and being a step or two late on the contest is probably more negligible than any player ever.
Yeah.
And like that's what the zone does. Like you can't always contest everyone when you're trying to cover that much ground, or if he flashes to the middle and just catches and immediately jumps and shoots. Like, yeah, that was tough. And again, I just think there were a lot of things, strategically, the actual execution. That they're not playing their best ball right now. Like at the end of the day, they're just not. And like I am definitely sympathetic of the staff trying to figure out how to get them going. Trying to pull some different levers to see what's going to motivate them.
They pulled the Javonte Green one that we had theorized on the last podcast.
Yeah,
Phoenix.
And I liked his minutes, by the way. I think that, right now this is the dog days and you're just trying stuff to see what sticks and what gets people out of the funk. I mean, Kenny mentioned it before this game where he was getting ready to do a big, challenging long practice to get out of the slump. And he's like, let's play horse instead. Let's just try to have fun, because like we've talked about this a lot that, no matter how much you love basketball, no matter, how good your team chemistry is, there's going to be a part of every season with an 82 game season, to your point, when you've been on the road every single day since February 25th, pretty much, or, traveling home and then traveling right back out since February 25th. There is going to be a part every season where this is just a job. Yep. And people don't like going to their jobs. I don't like going to my job. And I like my job, but if you gave me the choice to stay home and still get paid, I'd generally take that option. And like, I think that, I think it makes sense that Kenny goes to let's try just to inject some fun and some levity into this to break up that this is a job monotony. And who's to say if it worked, but they definitely gave a much better showing against Utah than they have against other teams that maybe weren't strong either.
Yeah, particularly, that Sacramento game and the Phoenix game, both of those, that's 3 games, 4 nights in 3 different cities where you're traveling between all of those. You're leaving the arena at 2 a.m. and you're just exhausted, right? I think we did a pretty good job at the start of the month saying, hey, this is going to be tough. This might not be tough from a level of competition standpoint, but they are going to be traveling this entire month. I expect a rut to happen at some point here because this is just the kind of stuff, this is the grind of the NBA season that always catches up to guys. And I definitely found it was interesting that Kenny Atkinson went that route. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's very, very difficult, right? And I've seen people say, well, they're only playing 32, 33 minutes. This is less than last year. So how are they going to get tired?
I think it's a mental fatigue more than a physical fatigue.
Right. When you are traveling for, a month straight, try telling someone, hey, you played 33 instead of 35. You should be fresh. No, like those 2 minutes aren't making a difference. You're still going through shoot around. You're still doing your, the workouts. You're still going through your post game routine of icing down and all the recovery stuff that you have to do, and you're never home. That's going to have an effect. So when I look at kind of the rest of this month, because it isn't until the end of the month that they actually have a stretch of games where they're at home, right? They're going to play the Clippers on the 30th, and then I think it's the Knicks.
Yep, on the 2nd.
On the Wednesday after. So Sunday to Wednesday they're going to be home. I expect them to look great in that Knicks game. But finally getting 2 days off, you're at home the whole time. You're finally going to get a little bit of a rest. That first one back at home is always kind of tough. That's almost an extension of the road trip. But until then, I don't expect them to really blow a team out in a dramatic fashion where, they shoot 60% from three and the ball is popping and we're getting those vintage Cavalanches. I think that this is going to be a bit of a grind. I think they are certainly capable of winning the rest of these games, but I don't think it's going to necessarily be the most pretty basketball that we've seen.
I have a question for you for this, through the rest of this month. Would you let's say they win out through the end of the month?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather see them, acknowledging that we're probably not going to have a ton of blowouts, would you rather see them win 130 to 125 or 110 to 105?
Sorry, what was that first score?
130 to 125 or 110 to 105. Like, would you like to see, things aren't coming together, but but we're scoring, or things aren't coming together, but we're stopping?
I think scoring. It's just more fun. I've got my fantasy finals next week. I had one this week, and I'm very upset because I needed Darius and Donovan to get me more points, and they just had to be pulled in the third quarter, which I get for the greater good.
I'm going the other way. I'd like to see them get. I want, if things aren't going to be easy for the rest of this month, I would like to see them hang their hat on. We're gonna suck to play against. Our legs are heavy on our jumper. We're shorting everything. But damn it, if we're gonna have a bad time on offense, you're gonna have a bad time too. And I would kind of like to see that. I love that Utah only scored 91 points tonight. That is a much more meaningful number than the 120 in terms of assessing where the team's head is at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from is I look at Portland, I look at Detroit, I look at the Clippers. These are all physical, long teams that are able to play defense at a high level. If the Cavs are able to say, hey, our three ball isn't falling, but we still found ways to go out there and score 120 or 130 points, that would feel really, really good to me. That is, hey, not everything is working, but we are still an offensive juggernaut. And particularly when we're looking at, can this offense finally translate to the postseason? Can they finally get over the hump and take the successes they have in a regular season to the postseason and establish themselves as legitimate contenders in the postseason? More proof of concept that they are able to find ways to get it done offensively in a variety of ways is going to give me confidence, because ultimately I trust that this team can play defense. I think that they're doing some things that make things a little too hard on themselves, whether it's, as you said, going to zone against the Phoenix Suns, or going to the three guard look in that time. Unnecessarily. I think that's things that you can change up in the postseason. I think that this team can defend at a high level when it matters. The offense, that's going to remain a question until we actually see it. So continuing to at least get that positive reinforcement on that end of the court, I think that makes it easier to play defense because the offense is rolling. And it just makes me feel a little bit better. I guess the true answer there is that's where more of my insecurities lie as a fan on the offensive end versus the defensive end.
That's fair. And honestly, to your point, if they are scoring 130 a night for the next 4 or 5 games, means Darius or Donovan are playing really well. Generally, that's a truism, but and not necessarily.
Or Mobley takeovers, baby.
Yeah, either way, it means they figured something out. And that has not been clicking for them. So I get what you're saying. And then I'm going to move it to another macro question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, we thought that a franchise record of 67 wins was all but a certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Just 7 days ago, going into that Orlando game. Now they have to finish 10-1 to get there. Do they get there?
I'm going to keep the faith. I'm going to say yes. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be scary. But yeah, I think that they get there. I think they go 10-1 to close this thing out. It's not a high degree of confidence with it. I am disappointed that it is a question after that 4-game losing streak. But I think that they are capable of pulling that off.
I think they're capable. They've responded unbelievably well to the swoons they've had this year. To your point, privately to me, we went 21-1 after our last 3-game losing streak. So it's not like the team hasn't done it. But I'm going to say we don't get there. I think we're going to go 8-3 or 9-2 down the stretch, and
9-2. Yeah, I could see that.
And but boy, I don't know if the team's thinking about it, but I sure would love to see them get there.
Yep.
It would mean so much to I feel like reclaim your dominance going into the postseason as opposed to a limp in. We just I know that there's no rhyme or reason to this. And teams that limp into the postseason end up going on runs all the time. Teams that come into the postseason red hot get knocked out in the first round all the time. I know, but just for the vibes, I would love to see this team rattle off 2 weeks of really strong play as we close out this regular season.
Well, especially because they're going to be playing some teams that are really gunning for these wins, that really want to, I think that's part of the losing streak, right? We were playing teams that are desperate, that were playing with their seasons on the line, while the Cavs weren't playing for much, right? I think that was a big factor here. So for them to say, you know what, let's play spoiler. Let's ruin the Clippers' day here and give them a loss. And let's go through the gauntlet that is playing Detroit and the physicality that they play with, and let's punch them in the mouth, right? Let's get that win. I think that would feel really great. Particularly, you got 2 games against the Knicks. Anytime you can hand the Knicks an L, that's going to feel great. So if they can pull it off, that'd be great. As you said, if they go 8-3. That's 65 wins. We would be thrilled about that, but before the season, and I think no matter.
Justin, can I just say this is unbelievable. No matter what expectation we set at the beginning of the season, no matter how ambitious we think it is, the Cavs every year have exceeded that expectation so thoroughly that by the end we're like, oh man, they only got to this. It's what this team does, man. Even in a season where there's no way I could feel even any shred of disappointment at the end of the year based on how far they flew past what I thought they were going to be. That just it's honestly reflective of how good they've been in this last 3-4 years. And even in this season, that I can be like, oh man, only 66 wins.
Yeah, I think given the benefit of hindsight, it's obviously going to be something I celebrate, particularly if they have a great postseason run. We're going to look back on the season very, very fondly. But they've also earned those increased expectations. And I would be disappointed if they didn't go out and get the franchise win record, or at the very least tie it. I think that would be a nice bow on this regular season. I think this team has played at that kind of level, so I want to see them go out and achieve it.
Yeah, me too. I think they can. I think it would be a special cap to a special season, but it'll still be, to your point, it's still a special season if they land at 64, 65, 66 wins. Matching a win total that you only ever got with LeBron James in the building is certainly nothing to sneeze at.
Totally agree. We'll see. Obviously, closing out this road trip with a lot of wins would go a long way towards getting that win record. So we'll see if they're able to pull it off. And really, as you said, get off to Schneid, get the offense back on track, keep this defense locked in. It'll be great to see. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.